Morning, everyone. Hope everybody's doing well and enjoying the nicer weather. So just a few more things to do and then we'll be finished the class. So I wanted to introduce Chapter 3 with this slideshow, and there'll be an accompanying assignment, which I'll show you a little bit later. Basically, it's just a note-taking assignment based on this video and this slideshow. So Chapter 3 is about the free market or the competitive. So the consumer talked about what markets, and now an important part, which is the market itself and the competitive are economic, which is competing for and how that works, and just the different ways in which people compete with their product. So what we live in is a free market society, and society has heuristics based on restricted operation. Three things: there are elements to the limited, governed, or real way, and is profit, and that whatever society from that, and we get to keep some of them. If you run a business, you sell product for $10, you're probably only a fraction of that make it difference between what it costs to produce, distribute the product, all between that and what you get to. So profit is a really important element. A private one, things we buy. So if I buy a house, and that house, somebody else owns it. I'm going to talk about them and call them a little later. Some things, like the government owns everything and evenly, at least in theory. So profit, private property, and competition. So at the heart is competition. To sell each other or produce a better product than their neighbor, or product that gives them advantage. Competition. As compete for generally prices down. Less means that prices can be high if you're the only person producing something, they know what it costs. Okay? So there's several types, which is what the rest of the B, so not private but competition as an element of a society. So there are several types of competition. Of those, the perfect monopolistic competition, or competition, and monopoly. Okay, those are, I will explain, but those are the terms. So in perfect competition, product is basically identical product. Okay, for example, so Joe produced corn, and it's essentially the same as Bob. Company that masses and harvests corn is selling basically this other company selling corn, or carrots, broccoli, beans. Vegetables are basically interchangeable. Each company differently. They're all corn or carrots or vegetables. Whiskey. So whiskey is essentially the same. It doesn't taste or whatever, but compete in the product itself. They're aspect. So one to an older generation, and I'd have say which appeals to the young rock and roll sort of crowd, but essentially whiskey. And able to think, for example, gas you buy Canada, same gas, so it's from the same wineries and place in the world, etc. Another element of competition or competition is when there are a number of companies that have control over the market. A bunch of company products that are interchangeable, so no company generally inherent. Right, as I've said, products are basically interchangeable. So they sell based on the price on the associated product. That's really it. Emotional as a quality different. Corn is corn or carrots. It happens that in perfect competition, legislation is required in kind of bad things, right? The idea that no money in the midst of all these controls get unfairly. An example. The other is it's overproduction. So, like farmers growing a whole bunch of eat or that they can't sell. It's a food, but it's wasteful in terms. And ethically, it has a negative of people working at there is no root for any the pun for anybody. So an example, milk quota. So in farms, how much milk produce, and they produce any more than that sold. All farmers sell the same buyer distributes it to grocery stores and whatever. So farmers don't sell essentially to the government, need a quota. The advantage of that, guarantee produce will be sold, where a regulated market might be production milk that they can't sell, which is waste. And the farmers, if it's run well, to have a quota so we don't have a lot of milk that nobody's drinking. Think of other as well. Second type of competition is monopolistic competition. It's when you have a number of companies, but each has a control. You don't have a whole very small ends on the market, a large but a distinct proportion of the market. Kind of info. This is bottled water, and bottled water is a larger company. So, for example, bottled water is like Coca-Cola. Nestle has bottled a bunch of different. But the difference here is a large companies are also in the market, a larger. So instead of having a whole 25, say, about the same area like you would have competition of companies 5 of which 60% market, and the other 4% of the market. Is that any one of those other 20 can, control 2 market each, grow and market share and take the other company. Happen in some milk quota system. So farmers, but the only way they can do those gives up monopoly competition work, like many examples as well. Pictures, hey, chocolate bars. The third type is an oligopoly. Fancy word, important means, but the explanation. An oligopoly exists when a small, large, each with a substantial amount exists. Okay, so the market given to us of companies that are large. See some of the symbols are examples of OPEC is the Organization of Petroleum Countries. So this is fossil industry, Saudi, Venezuela, Alberta and Canada, part of it. These are the places in the world, and the ones that they are the ones that this OPEC control oil and gasoline market. Only a relative few, just because oil only a small number of players of an oligopoly, the automobile. This is changing a little bit with the influence of particularly Japanese vehicle, Toyota, Mitsubishi, and companies like Kia. But Ford, Chrysler, and GM, big three, for a very long time, essentially were the America. So that's an oligopoly. The market, GM, Ford control 90% of them amongst the three of them. And you can think of other examples. Large, each with a very large of the market. The one is a monopoly, game monopoly, and it means the same thing. It's when a small number basically dominates the entire market. And the point of monopoly is that single person who owns all, and that's what a monopoly is, right? So company in complete control. American monopolies are illegal. Most capitalist economies, there's a company dominates, like I said, complement of a free society. You want a single company to dominate their market. In the late 1800s, there was a real problem in North America states. Certain people, they controlled the market. Vanderbilt, the railway market. John Jacob controlled the real estate industry. Andrew Carnegie industry. Nelson, the oil industry, etc. And theirs. But the problem was the price they could charge. That's not healthy society. So they passed legislation in the 20th century that prevented this from continuing. Laws. Modern example. This became an example with Microsoft. They came about because at that point, like all computers ran built Windows in a way that no other would work except microbrowser. And it meant was any like Netscape or this is they could sell their web 5% of the computers. So Microsoft was lost, right? Windows would allow a browser to work with software because they own most of the case structure, physical means of telephone, internet signal. Were sued to control, but Roger, they under influence because whatever they killed competition. They had to change the way they did business. So those are the 4 main types, and you can go back through this and read it. But the 4 main types of competition are perfect competition, in which there's a large number of companies, each with a relatively equal market share. There's monopolistic competition, okay, in which, and we'll go back just to, monopolistic competition, which you have a large number of companies, each with a degree of market control, okay, but not the same as perfect competition, right? And then you have an oligopoly in which you have a small number of very large companies. Oh yeah, sorry, going back to monopolistic competition, you have a large number of companies, and then you have a few of those have dominance, and most of them have smaller shares, but it's in flux, things could change. And then monopolistic competition or an oligopoly, is when you have a very small number of very large companies, all that control the entire market, such as the automobile industry. And finally, monopoly, in which a single company controls basically the entire market, which is illegal in almost every capitalist country. So hopefully that will help. And what I'm going to do is I will post this document. No, not this document. That's coming later. This document, this is basically, you can go through the video or the slideshow and fill in the blanks, and that will help you kind of consolidate your knowledge. So I hope this helps. I hope this is useful for you. And again, as always, please ask any questions you have. I will also post the keynote, so you'll have both the video and the keynote to work with. Okay, hope everybody has a great day.